Hey everybody, Dr. Nick here with another public sexual announcement for you for August the 18th, 2022. And this PSA is a follow-up to a full podcast that I did way back in April of this year called Dating in 2022 WTF. And in that podcast, I really focused on some of the women and what they were up to. And in this podcast, part 2, I'm going to focus in on the men and what we're up to. But I have a feeling, unfortunately, this podcast is going to hit a little bit different. In this podcast, I'm going to cite an article called The Rise of Lonely Single Men. And this article was written in August, and it was published on August 9th, actually, of this year. And the author, Greg Matos, he wrote this: younger and middle-aged men are the loneliest they've ever been in generations, and it's probably going to get worse. Damn. So let's talk about that today. To get started to the article I just mentioned, which was published in Psychology Today by Greg Matos. And he pretty much says that when it comes to dating, there are 3 broad trends on the horizon where he feels heterosexual men are in for a very rough road. The first trend that he mentioned is the use of dating apps. And the information that's out there says that more than 60% of those users happen to be men. So now the women are actually overwhelmed by how many dating options they actually have to choose from. The second major trend that he happens to mention in his article is that women's dating standards have changed, where he says now women are becoming more and more selective about their dating partners. He says women between the ages of 25 and 45 prefer to date men who are emotionally available, good communicators, and they want to date someone with whom they share the same values. And third, he mentions that many men are dealing with a skills deficit. So in other words, if they're not emotionally available and they're not good communicators, this will most likely lead to fewer dating opportunities. And he actually writes, the problem for men is that emotional connection is the lifeblood of healthy long-term love. The emotional connection requires all the skills that families are still not consistently teaching their young boys. The next topic I want to bring up is something that I learned about fairly recently, and I'm not sure if it's really based in or on men's fear of women, but this is something different. Whereas like back in the day, there was that old phrase called feminazis, but it's moved on from there. And now there seems to be some type of large online group called Men Going Their Own Way, or MGTOW, which advocates for men learning to live their lives without needing women in any way, shape, or form. It seems to be based on an idea where this society that we currently live in favors women and it persecutes men. And for those men who are in this group, they support ideas such as there is no such thing as a wage gap, marriage is a form of slavery for men. If there is any sort of domestic violence issue where the woman has been the aggressor, the guy will still go to jail. And an interesting one is that men are being forced to pay child support even though there is no DNA evidence connecting them to that child. Here is a quick quote from a man who supports these ideas. He says this: men do not have a disproportionate share of the power in the world. That's feminist theory, and it's not supported by observable reality. Women on aggregate do tend to be judgmental and overly critical of men. Typically, it's the female partner who loses interest in sex or starts rationing it to control your behavior. It's one of the many forms of manipulation. Basically, the default model of relationships in the West is that the man is a supplicant, trying to appease a petty tyrant of a partner who will have it her way or no way, with little or any effort on her part to reciprocate once she has you locked in. And to continue this thought, I just discovered that there is another online movement, but this time it's for black men, which happens to share many of the same characteristics of the MGTOW movement, and it's called Save Yourself Black Man, or SYSBM. This group views themselves as a tribe of thinking black men, which view themselves as victims of black women's autonomy, and it supports the idea that it's better or safe to stay away from black women and their dysfunctional behavior, and they can find peace of mind by dating outside of their race. These men also support the idea of having children with non-black women, living outside of the country, and also living in middle to upper class neighborhoods that they like to call Pleasantville. I'm not really sure what to say, because usually I can give some sort of positive note or positive outlook, but after that, I'm not really sure. But I can say this though, for some of the guys who are hearing this, maybe we could stand to work on some of our communication skills or something like that. That's not that bad. But for some of that other stuff, I'm not sure what to tell you. Because speaking as an African American male, I have been told by other black women not to date black women. So I'm not sure what's going on out there. So for the foreseeable future, dating is going to be really, really interesting in this country. So on that note, I'm out. You guys have a great day. Keep your heads up. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to you soon.